the 13th of July, and Putin had a heart attack.
We got caught, look. We ended up in the database, those damn bastards.
Russian ships in the Pacific and Northern fleets, nuclear submarines, are under a new attack by the SBU. Iskander ballistic missile launchers have been blown up. Military airfields with strategic nuclear aviation are burning. The SBU attacked facilities of Russia's nuclear triad.
Something's on fire.
Factories producing the formidable Topol and YARS intercontinental nuclear ballistic missiles have been completely blown up. This means Russia's entire nuclear triad is now under a significant and direct attack. Breaking news, friends. Ukraine has successfully attacked 2 strategic nuclear airfields, causing considerable damage and raising serious concerns. These are where the strategic nuclear bombers, Engels and Diaghilevo, are located. They didn't just hit, they scored direct hits. For the first time, Ukraine has attacked ballistic missiles in Bryansk. They're detonating.
In short, that's where the sheds are burning. Everything is on fire. Clearly, a lot is going to burn there. It looks like the fire trucks haven't arrived yet. I wish they'd get here soon.
This was a powerful special operation by the Security Service of Ukraine and other Ukrainian special services. These were the command posts of Iskander ballistic missiles in the Bryansk region. Ukraine is also preparing to attack Russian ships in the Pacific Ocean. According to reports, Kyiv is planning an operation using naval drones hidden in cargo containers to strike Russian ships and their allies in the northern part of the Pacific Ocean. Ukraine has attacked 2 out of 3 elements of the nuclear triad and is continuing further. A new phase of the SBU special operation is being prepared. Moreover, the Yaroslavl motor plant was on fire in Russia. This is one of the plants where engines are manufactured for the Topol complex vehicles, the intercontinental nuclear missiles Topol. In other words, essentially the nuclear triad. Let's discuss all this with the President of the Assembly of the Peoples of the Caucasus, Ruslan Kutaev. Ruslan Khamdich, welcome.
Dasha, good afternoon. Greetings to our viewers.
Ruslan Khamdich, we attacked ballistic missile launchers in Bryansk. This is a historic event. Let's start with that. What do you think about the attacks by the armed forces of Ukraine?
Well, this is a logical continuation of Ukraine's actions. Ukraine is starting to act further, deeper, and the vast expanse of Russian military, let's say, industry has a great many enterprises of various types on its territory, warehouses, there are military units. And as we can see, Ukrainian special services are demonstrating, first of all, that they know where everything is located. Secondly, that they can reach these targets. And thirdly, that they have begun to systematically and quite dynamically carry out work to destroy all of this. You were right to mention here, these are intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of carrying a nuclear warhead. These missiles are also being destroyed. And here, I think it's worth mentioning to our viewers that yesterday, when Russia was actually preparing to retaliate against Ukraine with a heavy, powerful strike, Ukrainian intelligence detected the activity of these very Iskander launchers. It is known for certain that 1 Iskander launcher was destroyed and 2 were damaged. So these 6 missiles, which were in fact presumably aimed at some important administrative buildings in Kyiv, were destroyed. Essentially, the beginning of Putin's insidious plan was thwarted right from the start. And of course, immediately after that significant event, they completely lost the crucial momentum that could have genuinely inspired the Russian orcs, as well as Vladimir Putin himself and his closest inner circle of advisors and confidantes. So, look, what's interesting here is that with every passing hour, Ukrainian special services are behaving more and more actively. They are not only inflicting damage, but even in real time, they manage to observe, gather intelligence on the actions of Russian missile systems, destroy them, and cause losses. This is a significant improvement in the skills and conduct of Ukrainian special services, military command, and of course, those drone operators and missile crews. All of them are acting very successfully and skillfully, destroying Russian installations and Russia's military-industrial complex throughout the entire territory of Russia.
Operation Web continues. The SBU attacked 2 airfields, Engels and Dyagilevo, that is 2 bases for Russia's strategic aviation, as well as an oil depot that supplies fuel to Russia's strategic nuclear aviation. At least 3 storage tanks are currently burning at the Kombinat Kristal oil product storage facility of the Russian State Reserve. In other words, we continue to attack the bases of strategic nuclear aviation. Operation Web is ongoing. A Mi-8 helicopter was destroyed, and a Mi-35 was damaged as a result of drone attacks, including at Bryansk airport last night. Ruslan Kutaev, the floor is yours.
These reserves, the state fuel reserves, aviation fuel eyes, 3 tanks were hit, but according to the latest information, everything is already leaking out of there, and 3 more tanks have caught fire, and this is ongoing. It's possible that the fire will continue, as we know from similar incidents at oil depots. It's often impossible to even contain such a blaze. As a rule, the fire spreads from one tank to another, engulfing industrial facilities as well, such as oil processing plants, and all of it, let's say, becomes consumed by the flames. I think the situation there is still unresolved. The fire is still burning, and it's not yet clear how much will be destroyed as a result of this operation and the actions of the Ukrainian side.
The fact that Ukraine is preparing attacks on Russian ships in the Pacific Ocean and that Sevastopol and Crimea have been hit by Neptunes, we'll discuss that a bit later. But for now, I'd like us to focus on a very interesting and important topic. Friends, please like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. This is about something like a hazelnut exploding in the sky over Kazakhstan and breaking apart into pieces. And the first to report this were Russian military correspondents, also known as Russian war reporters or Z-bloggers. They wrote about the failed launch of the Orishnik. Kapustin Yar is close to the border with Kazakhstan. That night, Putin decided to attack Ukraine. He did attack it, and he surely wanted to use the Orishnik, an intercontinental missile. The question is, does this Orishnik actually exist? Did it explode? And why did it explode, Ruslan Kutaev? Let's think this through together.
First of all, I served in Kopeisk. I served at the very base, the testing ground we're talking about now, in the automotive troops of the rocket and artillery forces. And indeed, intercontinental ballistic missile tests were conducted there. There, the Astrakhan region borders Kazakhstan, which at that time was the Guryev region. And indeed, tests were conducted there. That's where they were launched. And this launch was supposed to, I analyze what the experts are saying. The Orishnik was most likely launched. And the fact that we have pictures and recordings most likely indicates that somewhere over the steppes, the Kazakh steppes, this Orishnik exploded in the air, and it actually was not able to complete, and not only to complete, but for the most part, even to begin its course toward Ukraine. What does this tell us? We know that the first time when they targeted the Dnipropetrovsk region, the Orishnik accomplished less than 5% of what Russia had expected. There was no destruction there. They hit a training center there, and that was all they managed to do. And now, too, it seems they tried to use the Orishnik for this purpose again. They were very upset. They needed to show the orcs back in Russia that they were still a force to be reckoned with, that they could do something, scare someone, but it's not working. It's just not working. They had a failure with the Iskanders. Ukraine destroyed them when they were brought to the front line in the Bryansk region for an attack on Kyiv. With the Orishnik, as we can see, it was a fiasco. Russian rocket troops and artillerymen are failing on all fronts. No matter how hard they try, it's not working for them. It's not working because all of this is built exclusively on Soviet-era weaponry. They have nothing. They haven't accomplished anything. all their claims, all those cartoons have remained just cartoons. And they can't move beyond that. This is the problem of Putin, the Russian armed forces, and this entire Russian fascist horde that would like to drown the entire population of Ukraine in blood. It's not because they don't want to, it's because it just doesn't happen. They can't do it. This is what we need to understand and be aware of.
Ruslan Kutaev. Let's return to the topic of Russia's nuclear triad, which everyone is talking about now, and which in fact was attacked by Ukraine and its intelligence services. All the world leaders have written about this now. They even reported it. Kaja Kallas officially stated that this is unprecedented. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and even Donald Trump, through his sources, conveyed that he too is stunned by the SBU special operation. And here last time we talked about the need to attack the Russian Federation's fleet, the nuclear submarines. There is the Northern Fleet of the Russian Federation, which was attacked. And there is the Pacific Fleet of the Russian Federation. We discussed this with you. And just before our stream today, the Washington Post published a piece saying that Ukraine is preparing attacks on Russian ships in the Pacific Ocean. According to the publication, Kyiv is planning an operation to use naval drones hidden in cargo containers to strike Russian ships and their allies in the northern part of the Pacific Ocean. But it's very hard for me to imagine that Ukrainian intelligence agencies would announce their attacks through the Washington Post. Why was this done? Let's, in general, discuss the attacks on the Pacific Fleet, on the Northern Fleet, and how much of a blow this would actually be for Putin.
Dasha, let's first agree on something. The Washington Post, Bloomberg, and other newspapers are not the kind of media outlets that would, let's say, spread fake news. If they wrote about it, then without a doubt they have grounds to say so. First. Second, if the Ukrainian intelligence services, armed forces, and political leadership did not prohibit this from being published, it means they have sufficient grounds to believe that this operation is under extremely tight security and that they are confident that regardless of the fact that it has been made public, they will be able to carry this operation through to the end. Third, and this is very important, the Pacific Fleet, as we understand, North Korea is now responding, and Shoigu is currently in North Korea. Russia is demanding soldiers, and North Korea is supplying ammunition, weapons, and sending people. And now it is very important if Ukraine really does this, and I am convinced that they will be able to do it, and they reach Vladivostok, Khabarovsk, the Far East, and if they even slightly manage to hit some ships, some movements, tankers, cargo, in this case, Russia will not just be put in an uncomfortable position. Russia will be in a state of, crisis, because that is the area where practically all those ports are exposed, even the military base, everything that was there in terms of air defense and missile defense has been moved here closer to the front, to Moscow, and away from there. If such a threat arises now, if suddenly drones start flying, and they will then, in that case, they'll have to pull something away from there, from the front, from here, from the center, and bam, transfer it over there. To the Far East, that's bad news for Russia. How are they going to compensate for that? It's impossible to predict because openly China can't provide them with missile defense or air defense systems. North Korea doesn't have the means to protect against such weapons. Russia itself either doesn't produce this at all, or if it does, it only makes 1 or 2 units a year. There are no spare parts. They don't have the machinery needed to manufacture such complex military equipment as missile defense and air defense systems. So, to be honest, these are extremely serious problems. But we even talked about it here, that these problems would arise. We said that Ukraine is developing its technological capabilities. Germany. Merz explicitly stated that the joint Ukrainian-German production of military equipment will, in the coming weeks, already be deployed to the front lines, with Ukraine utilizing advanced missiles produced collaboratively by Germany and Ukraine, significantly enhancing their defensive capabilities. These are the first fruits, not just of arms and ammunition supplies, but of the work of joint ventures in Ukraine's military-industrial complex with Europeans, with the British, with the Germans, with the Poles. And these are the results. That's why they're able to reach Irkutsk. That's why there are real reasons to believe they'll reach Vladivostok and everywhere else, even Murmansk. So our expectations are not just wishful thinking, our expectations are genuinely high. And all of this together is destroying Russian logistics. Ammunition, weapons, people that can't be brought up to the front in time, they can't even reach the frontline zone, and that's where they're being destroyed. This is how things are working, relationships are improving, and the overall approach to everything is being refined. It's no coincidence that Russian war correspondents are making a fuss. They're saying, for example, about the appointment of Madhyar as the commander of drones in Ukraine. What has stirred this cause? A man who was sitting in a trench, as just an ordinary soldier or a sergeant, started out as an operator. What he has achieved. Is something like that even possible in Russia? Never, under any circumstances, would such a rise be possible in Russia because of someone's personal qualities. This is possible in Ukraine, and that's why Ukraine is winning. That's why Ukrainian engineering thought is ahead. Why is that? Because here, the principle is if you can, take the lead. If you know how, create. That's the Ukrainian principle, and that's why they're winning. There's no need to be surprised. They will keep advancing. This is the outlook for this war.
We can expect another series of explosions in Crimea. Military targets in Simferopol were attacked by Neptunes. There's a kilometer-long line of trucks at the Shonhar checkpoint entering annexed Crimea. A huge number of explosions. And once again, the Kerch Bridge is under attack. There's an alert there. But before we discuss this, what I call the occupied Crimea segment, I want us to talk about a very important point. The West, Europe, and America didn't provide us with all the weapons because they were afraid of nuclear escalation. They were afraid of that nuclear triad. They were afraid that if they gave Ukraine the weapons to win, to attack Russia deep within its territory, to drive the Russians out of our land, Russia would start World War I, II, a nuclear war, and so on. And now Ukraine is showing that we have attacked the nuclear triad Russia and there is no nuclear war. Let's just discuss this precedent together. So Ukraine did this with drones, right? And not with multi-billion-dollar weaponry. In other words, we attacked multi-billion-dollar weapons, about $7 billion in total, using drones, unmanned aerial vehicles.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Indeed, because at first, when this nuclear well, more precisely, this aviation of the highest level, specifically strategic aviation, was destroyed. After all, it was assumed that after this, if they ever intended to use nuclear weapons, by the way, they were shouting about this in Russia, in Moscow, the war correspondents there. They were encouraging the political and military leadership to use them if they ever decided to do so. But we knew that they would never do it. Why wouldn't they do it? Because they are hostages of the situation they themselves created. Their families, their money, their status quo of it depends on the West. They study there, they live there, they keep their money there in the West. They didn't start this war to die, and not for some idea. They started all this because of the whim of a madman who was somehow personally offended deep inside. And that President, young, progressive president of Ukraine, everything about him irritated Putin, his youth, his intelligence, his insight. And so he decided, as he said himself, to teach this jester, this clown, a lesson. And in the end, it turned out that Putin himself was the jester, he was the clown, and he was the coward. As soon as a situation arises that could be even slightly dangerous, he runs away, he hides, he's afraid to make a decision. So after this web of a brilliant operation was carried out, he called Trump. And to little Trump, he was complaining there, saying that Ukraine was committing terrorist acts. And Trump's behavior is unclear. The president of the greatest country, the greatest state, what is he doing? He is, in fact, making some kind of terrorist demands on behalf of a terrorist state. And Trump voices these demands to the whole world. Essentially, these are Putin's demands. Putin is threatening to respond to Ukraine in the harshest way possible. And Trump not only doesn't object, but moreover, he broadcasts this. So it turns out that Trump, in Putin's hands, is the tool used by terrorists. And here is where America failed to do what it was fundamentally obligated to do. There was no action taken, but within America itself, this was given a very serious assessment. They called out Trump. He did this somewhere on his social media, recorded it, and then they quickly removed Trump's recording because it was absolutely clear that Trump had basically caved in and was afraid of Putin. People in America understand that Putin is using Trump as a tool. Putin did everything he could to put pressure on Ukraine. Putin did everything he could to use Trump. He really is using him. And once again, I want to say that taking everything together from different points of view and from different platforms, no matter who is broadcasting or making decisions, Ukraine has not only not retreated, not only not stopped, but as we discussed a bit earlier, Ukraine has continued its operations. Ukraine is not looking back at anyone. Today, Ukraine understands that it will only have what it achieves on its own. It's not European weapons, it's not American weapons, but Ukrainian drones were able to accomplish what they did. And now, as was mentioned in the Washington Post, they didn't say they would strike with American Tomahawks. No, what they said was, Ukrainian drones, they will reach Vladivostok and they will attack the Pacific Fleet. This is the character of Ukraine, the character of the Ukrainian military and the Ukrainian president. They don't stop at anything. They keep moving forward. And this is the only thing that can stop Trump, Putin, and everyone else.
Ruslan Hamidovich, Russian public pages and media have written that Putin had a heart attack, and that's why he hasn't appeared in public for a long time. I would like you to comment on this.
Well, I wouldn't rule it out if someday he does have a heart attack. It's bound to happen eventually, because blow after blow keeps coming at him, one after another. Just look, for example, at the meeting between the Chancellor of Germany and the President of the United States. He arranged this meeting in a very skillful, elegant, and diplomatic way. And what a principled stance the German leader demonstrated. He did not, on any issue, refuse to support Ukraine. He made it clear to Trump that the country that attacked is Russia, and that it is the country that is unequivocally bringing evil. And so when support for Ukraine is coming from all sides, when Ukraine is advancing on the front lines, when Ukrainians are getting stronger, just look at how much effort and money has been poured into Ukrainian society just to find at least 3 people who would crow that Zelensky should be removed or that the war should be stopped. They can't even find 2 or 3 people to support what they've been shouting about for 3.5 years, to get support in Ukraine, in Ukrainian society, among the Ukrainian people. Of course, from this, not only will he have a heart attack, I think soon he'll just completely kick the bucket. And that's why I think others understand these 2 other people, even those close to him. Actually, I think you and I have discussed this before. Right now, most likely there are serious talks about sending Putin into retirement. And in order to keep him from interfering, they're considering someone from among his daughters. There's talk about Ikonova. And that's why I think this is also real and it's also serious. Putin understands he can't win. Putin understands she was hoping that Trump could do something, that he could present Ukraine as a side that has already capitulated. Trump can't do that. He can't, because besides Trump, there's also Congress, there's the US Senate, and in the end, there's the American judiciary. And there are the American people, 67% of whom support Ukraine. And all of this together doesn't even give the Russian political leadership hope that help might come from somewhere else. And that by forcing Ukraine and Europe, which is a close ally of Ukraine, to yield, it would grant Russia victory. Victory Russia cannot win. Russia needs someone to hand them victory. There is no player today who can do that. And that's why we can confidently say Ukraine is moving toward its victory. Ukraine is doing everything to win. And going forward, this will happen much more often and more effectively. And over there on the Russian side, they know and understand this.
Shamkhadagic, analyzing occupied Crimea, we are now carrying out a huge number of special operations, such as at the military airfield and the Kerch Bridge for the third time. And now, once again, Neptunes are attacking Crimea. Moreover, according to local social media channels, the entry of trucks onto the Kerch Bridge is closed, and when entering the peninsula via the so-called land corridor through the occupied territories, security forces are searching every truck with a magnifying glass in search of friendly drones. And in general, there is already information circulating that the Kerch Bridge is closed again and is expecting a strike. Air raid alert. What do you think?
After the Ukrainian Neptunes, the German Tauruses will follow. I have no doubt about that. They're taking aim. Did you notice? Right now, there's a lot of commotion around the Kerch Bridge, both from the land side, from Crimea, and from Krasnodar, from both sides of the Kerch Bridge, and also by sea. And then there are these maritime drones. Everything is in motion now. They're searching for the most effective way to strike. Strikes with Taurus missiles, the effectiveness of these missiles has long been known worldwide. They will definitely try them out on the Kerch Bridge. In Crimea, they already understand this. They understand why. How do I know this? They're fleeing from their people who came to set up a business. Some were lured in, some came voluntarily, some wanted to live there, some needed to settle down. They realize that you can't build a life there anymore. They understand that the noose is tightening. So what do they want? They want to escape from Crimea. They realize that they could become hostages, not of Ukraine, not hostages of the FSB or NKVD troops who won't let them leave and will hold them hostage, but because there's a danger that through this bottleneck with the Kherson region, the Ukrainian army might and definitely will attack Crimea as well. That's why they will continue trying to keep these residents of Crimea as hostages. That's why everyone understands, and that's why everyone is fleeing.
Yes, whether it's freestyle, breaststroke, however you like, just urgently leave Ukrainian Crimea. A brilliant analysis by the President of the Assembly of the Peoples of the Caucasus, Shamkhadagic Kutaev. Dear friends, please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Write a few kind words in the comments to support Ukraine and the armed forces of Ukraine, because we are working for an audience all over the world so that they know the truth about Russian aggression. That's why every like, every comment, every subscription from you is priceless. Thank you. Shamkhadagic, thank you very much. As always, see you soon.
See you soon. Dear friends, support Dasha and her channel. You will hear good news from this channel many more times. All the best. Take care.